Welcome to Pros, Talking Pros. Today, Troy and I are actually going to embark on something a little different. And I'm kind of excited about doing this because he and I usually can pretty much agree on everything. And I think we kind of agree on this too. I mean, we can both
hmm
understand different viewpoints, but this is going to be kind of fun. I'm going to take I don't know if it's a pro and against kind of thing, because what we're going to do is we're going to talk about um, that we're going to debate the issue, which is to buy or to get free ISBNs. And I'm going to
hmm
take the position of why you would buy your own. And Troy's going to take the position of why you would get free ISBNs. And we're going to see where this goes. But I'm going to give this kind of like initial kind of disclaimer, because it's a disclaimer that I know Troy will agree with. First of all, when you're taking control of your author business, we all understand that as creatives, the beautiful thing about creatives is that we're showing these perspectives, and they're different and they're unique and they're special, and they apply to you because of the way you have, because of your unique voice. That applies to your business as well. So
hmm
what's right for some people will probably not be right for you, and vice versa. So when we are debating these issues, understand that what we want you to take from this is what works for you and what doesn't, and why you would consider that a priority and why you wouldn't. So we just want you to understand that, because we have professional friends. I know Troy has one in particular that makes a significant amount of money that is on his side of the table. And I have many, many friends that are on this side of the table that are equally significantly successful. So we will just let that bygones be bygones, but we do want to address these issues because we know this is something that people talk about all the time, and they want to know,
Yeah.
what do I do?
Well,
So,
yeah, for sure. And let me just throw in the disclaimer that also that my position on this has changed over the last several years,
mhm.
mainly because publishing has changed. So what used to be 100% truth is now mixed, is now something we can debate.
Mhm.
But 3 years ago, I would have been 100% on Stacey's side and been like, you should buy your own ISBNs
Mhm.
every single time. You should not use free ones. You should not use somebody else's. But even the way publishing has evolved just in the last few years has made me rethink that position in some cases. So, anyway, we'll get into the debate. But the
So yeah,
disclaimer
we'll
is
get into that.
things change.
Things
Things
change. And
change.
yeah, and that's another reason why we just want to say, do what's right for you. And before we get started, just let you know, like, subscribe, and let us know if you need any help. Troy and I both do consultations. We're both available to help you with your unique project, because we realize that might require some extra thinking, or
hmm
you might want to bounce your ideas off of us. So we're happy to do that. So, okay. So the first topic I want to bring up is, first of all, what are we talking about, Troy? Let's talk about ISBNs. What are ISBNs?
So ISBNs are a book identifier
Mhm.
that is unique to your book and identifies it to primarily to retailers. That's the purpose of the ISBN. For the most part, your readers don't care about the ISBN. It doesn't matter to them, um, other than as a potential way to locate your particular title by identification. However, if your title is so obscure that somebody has to find it by the ISBN because they can't find it because of your name or the title or the combination of those two words, you may have other issues. And that's a whole different topic for another day. But an ISBN can make sure that someone knows that they are getting your book that you wrote and that you published. Um, but it's primarily for retailers, bookstores, um, other retailers require them for various different formats. It just depends on what you're doing, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But
Okay.
ISBNs is just a number that identifies your book. It's 13 or 10 digits long.
Right. So let me add to that. There's a couple of caveats with ISBNs. First of all, ISBNs, yes, they're identifiers, and they identify not only your book, but the edition or the format of that book. So remember, like when you're printing a hardcover and a paperback and an ebook, all three of those will have separate identifiers. So these are also going to help you not only be identified by retailers, but actually by librarians if you're kind of a snob in the publishing world. And that's something, librarians hold the keys to the kingdom. So just keep that in mind as well. So if you don't have these identifiers, copyright and Library of Congress numbers or Library of Congress is a little snotty about this, specifically the Library of Congress. You can still copyright something that has a free ISBN, but it has to have an ISBN to be copyrighted. So understand that an identifier serves multiple purposes. Also keep in mind that ISBNs are not unique to the United States. They're internationally used, but they have different numbering systems in different countries. And they have different numbers within that code that mean that they're from different countries. And in the United States, the only issuer of ISBNs legally in this country is Bowker. So if you are buying any ISBN outside of Bowker directly, you are buying from a third party, and that is not going to probably benefit you. So if you plan to buy an ISBN at the end of this video and you hear our debates and you think, okay, I'm going to buy my own, then buy your own directly from Bowker. That is BOWKER.com. All right. So that's what I'm going to lead into on that. Do we have anything else we want to add about ISBN?
No, it's just the only thing I will add is that even if you get a free ISBN in the United States, it came from Bowker. It came from a third party who purchased it and then is giving it to you as a part of their incentive for you to publish on their platform.
Exactly.
And so if you're going to copyright your book and you have a whole bunch of free ISBNs, you're going to have to pick one to use for copyright. And I'll caveat that with advice about which one to use. If you are going to have free ones and you still want to copyright and do other things, there are strategies that you can use that actually work. But I do want to give that as a caveat, is that usually that is an incentive. So they have still purchased those from Bowker in the United States. That's the only place they come from. So if your book originates in the United States, your ISBN, regardless of where it came from Bowker at some point.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So let's talk about the first argument here in our possible debate. And it's kind of like one of my big ones, but it's something that you actually, when you were talking to me about this, it made me do this, like, oh yeah, you're kind of right here. And that's control over your intellectual property. So when you own your ISBN, you have, this is the pro side, you have full control of your metadata. So that means that your author name, your publisher name, your the categories, everything that's linked to that ISBN, you have complete control over, and you can choose what those are. When you go, and this is why I don't completely agree going with a free one, because when you go with that free one, it's directly linked to that platform, and you are limited to that platform's metadata that can be assigned to that ISBN. So this creates confusion sometimes about who owns the rights to that book. So Troy, why is that not an issue when you're trying to do something with it, when you're using a free one?
Well, so there's a couple things. The first one is that if you are dealing with a reputable place that offers you a free ISBN, which that's something we should probably cover as well. If you're going with some kind of a vanity press or whatever, you're in the wrong, there's a problem. Okay.
We'll talk. Call us.
We'll talk about that because and so please don't do that, because understand they are going to control not only your metadata, but they're also going to control some of the rights to your book. And that's a whole different thing. But if, let's say, you're using a platform like Draft2Digital, okay, they will give you a free ISBN. You check a little button, they give you a free ISBN. What that means is Draft2Digital becomes your publisher of record. However, you can add categories and keywords as you register that ISBN. So you still control the metadata on it. So it's not, you're not losing that element of control. However, what you are losing is that if a librarian looks at that book and that's the ISBN you use, which I wouldn't recommend, but if that's the ISBN that you use when you contact libraries, because you've done draft to digital print, then draft to digital shows up as the publisher. Well, any reputable librarian who has any idea what's happening in the publishing industry, which it used to be they didn't.
Mhm.
And so it could be even more confusing, but now they do. Then they know that draft to digital means that you have a self-published title.
Right.
And that can immediately be a strike against you when it comes to libraries and certain literary criticism and certain other areas like that. Now, if you write genre fiction like me, you don't care
Right.
because literary criticism of genre fiction is the most insane thing I've ever. I mean, I'm like, I gave you a candy bar and you rated it like a 5-star Michelin meal.
Hmm.
No, the nougat in this Snickers bar is not quite up to par. Screw you. That's not what this is, right? This is a freaking candy bar, right? But if you write women's fiction, if you're writing a memoir, if you're writing certain types of nonfiction, then those things start to matter a lot more. And this is where ownership of that ISBN, where I can argue Stacey's side of it, right? But as far as the metadata is concerned, like you can still control that as long as you're dealing with a reputable company. Be sure you're dealing with a reputable company. I
Right.
mean, for the love of all that's anyway, just
Yeah.
be sure that you're doing it.
Well, I will say this a lot, and this is coming from somebody who's done both sides of this. This is I've used the free ISBNs because sometimes I have clients that's the choice. But I will say this: when you register your ISBNs with Bowker and you go in and you fill out that metadata, you can be a lot more specific than you can be with the metadata that you're given with say draft to digital. And I will say draft to digital does give you, they are the more liberal in terms of like giving you the most amount of metadata that you can insert, which is one of the reasons why I like them. But yeah, when it comes to the metadata that you enter on Bowker directly, there's a lot more that you can insert there to help with sales, and it's a lot more thorough. You're also listed on that main category, so I don't want to give on that main catalog. I don't want to give the wrong impression that when you get a free ISBN, then you can go to Bowker and you can fill out that information on Bowker. You can't do that. You will only have
No.
the draft to digital platform or the Amazon platform to fill out that information. But you're right. It's like it depends on the genre that you're writing, and you really should pay attention to
Mm-hmm.
that. So that's
Mm-hmm.
that's a big reason.
And one more note on that too is that the other place that's really generous with that metadata is Ingram. If you
Yeah.
get Ingram Spark, and the reason is they're in bed with Bowker. They're pretty much their
Hmm.
companies are if they're not married, they're sleeping together. So um, I mean, let's just be honest about that, the way that that works. So you do get some more metadata from them. And if you're going to use a free ISBN for libraries and Library of Congress and things like that, the one from Ingram is the one to use,
Right.
which means you need to be on Ingram, there's other reasons that you should be on Ingram as well. That's another thing we can talk about another time. But if you're going to use free ISBNs, Ingram should be one of the platforms you're on, and you should be using one of their ISBNs for
And
sure.
that's the one. I mean, that kind of segues into that's the one that you would use on your copyright, um,
Hmm.
because that would be the one
Absolutely.
that would give you the most. Well, it give you the most legitimacy as far as the others
Hmm.
out of the others. Don't ever. I'm asterisk asterisk asterisk. I can't say that word tonight because I'm tired. But that
Yeah.
don't ever use Amazons. Don't ever use
No.
Amazons to ever copyright anything. So if you're
Yeah.
just gonna publish on Amazon, don't bother. And we could talk about copyright and why it's not necessary to register if you're going to do that, or if you really want to register, why you would want to go this route and everything like that. But that's a totally different topic. We're not going to talk about copyright tonight. but just keep that in mind, like with that
Absolutely.
position. Yeah. Okay.
Well, yeah, the biggest thing with Amazon is, well, listing Amazon as your publisher of record is a huge mistake.
Yeah.
As far as if you want to be in bookstores, if you want to be in libraries, and if you want to have that legitimacy behind you, it's just a really bad idea.
Really bad idea.
There's other reasons it's a bad idea. Again, we won't go down that road because that deals more with copyright and your choices as far as how to run your publishing business. But it's just not wise. We'll say that.
We'll say that. Yeah. Okay, moving on. Now this is the one that I think I'm gonna lose on on my side, but professional branding and credibility. So, and this is why I know exactly what Troy is going to say, but using your own ISBN means you're listed with the publisher. You're the listed publisher. I'm reading my notes. And if you use it with Amazon and Ingram, we've talked about this, it signals that you're self-published. Troy's already said that, but this can affect your reputation. And I now understand, like this is a weak point of my argument, because reputation here is kind of shifting. So Troy, I'm going to let you take this away, because the publishing world is not the same as it used to be.
So the other day, Stacey and I were talking about getting t-shirts, that we should get a slogan that says, "It depends."
It depends.
And that doesn't apply anywhere as strongly as it applies in this particular situation. Again, if you write genre fiction, you're writing romance, sci-fi, mystery, whatever the case may be, what I call consumer fiction. Like, I'm buying it to consume it. I may never consume it again. It's probably not something I will reread. If you're lucky, I will remember your name as an author when I tell someone about the book that I read.
Right.
That type of thing. Then this professional reputation type thing doesn't really matter. And there are lots and lots of genre fiction authors who have simply stopped paying for ISBNs because it's just an additional expense. And I can take that $100 or that $500 for 1,000 of them, or whatever it is that I'm doing, and I can spend that on advertising. I can spend it on marketing. I can spend it on better covers. There's tons of things that I can spend that on that really do make a bottom line difference in my income, rather than purchasing an ISBN, which really makes no difference to my income level at all.
Right.
Right.
So,
however, when you're nonfiction,
yeah,
or you are in literary fiction, or that type of realm. First of all, self-publishing in literary fiction and memoir is extremely challenging. Memoir is an extremely challenging category, and I know everyone wants to write one, but the problem is, unless you're famous and the media is paying attention to it, memoirs are an extremely hard sell. The other thing is that people brand them wrong, but that's a whole different story that I experienced with someone just recently who had a memoir, but nowhere in their blurb or on the book did it say it was a memoir.
Oh dear.
So people were clicking on it, not buying it, because by the time they got to the end of the blurb, they realized, oh, this
it was
is
a memoir.
If they had known that at the outset, they wouldn't have clicked on the ad. The person was spending tons and tons of money on advertising that wasn't working, and that's why. Anyway, but if you're in those categories, literary, memoir, women's fiction, those type of things, that reputation thing really does make a difference. Now, there is a problem. And that is that many self-published authors are creating their own imprint brand, including me. Okay.
Yeah, I encourage it.
The problem is that people have become wise to the fact that if it's not a well-known publisher name, you're probably self-published. You made up a name. If your book is listed under Two Cats Publishing, we know that you're a cat lady from Missouri, who's, just self-publishing her romances under her brand, and we don't care. Most readers don't care. I'm just saying that's not solving your reputation problem. If you're doing nonfiction, that should be a part of your bigger brand, and that's a whole other thing about author branding, right? And so having that publisher of record can make a significant difference in the way your people approach your book and the way you sell your book.
Exactly.
So, truth there, we're kind of laying it out there as raw as we can get it, in that
If you have
Stacey isn't
questions,
wrong,
yeah.
and I'm not wrong,
Yeah.
because the answer in this particular little niche of
What
this
is it? What is
conversation
it?
is it
It
depends.
depends.
It depends.
It depends.
There's really no right answer. There's really no wrong answer. And what's the answer is for you. And the other thing is, there are times when people want to feel that sense of legitimacy, and
Right.
that publisher name associated with their ISBN helps them feel that. And if that improves your confidence as an author, anything that improves your confidence as an author is not a bad thing.
Right. Exactly.
So there's that.
Exactly.
So
Well, yeah, and I'm just gonna add as just a little again asterisk slash anec what do they call it? Not anecdote. It's a oh gosh, and it what is it when they put
annotation, maybe?
yes, an
Something like that?
annotation. Thank you. I just
Yeah.
want a little annotation on this one. Is that when you're creating an imprint, and you're trying to elevate yourself, it would be like Troy said, it depends on how you're setting yourself up, but it is still a good idea to do that. But understand it's because we're trying to elevate you as a professional and someone who takes yourself seriously. But again, there's a right and a wrong way to do it. So just if you have a particular brand that you're trying to portray, make sure that you keep that imprint and that publishing name professional. If you have any questions about that, you can check out my website and sign up for my course, because I go through an entire section on imprints and branding and how to start your author business. So, okay. And then Troy and I think we're going to actually do a whole big course just on author businesses. I think that this is something we should totally do. Because yeah, I would love to do that. Okay. Next question, next debate issue. ISBNs are essential for wide distribution.
Yes, they are.
So, however,
anyway, go ahead.
It depends.
Go
I would
ahead,
say,
and then I will.
okay,
Yeah.
Amazon free. Let's see. Amazon free ISBNs. Okay, so they only allow you to distribute on Amazon. Now, Amazon has what they call wide distribution. And
Expanded.
I am going to tell you that their wide distribution is not wide. It is their distribution. It is limited to very limited, because there are certain things that you have to do with wide distribution in order to get recognized. And when people want to recognition, they want to be in Walmart, Target, they want to be in all the stores. You can't do that if you're publishing on Amazon and using their wide distribution. That comes through Ingram, and it comes through the way you set up your book on Ingram with discounts and everything and returns and things. But on Ingram, you can use their free ISBN and get that wider distribution, but it is also limited, because owning your ISBN means that you can do it everywhere, use the same ISBN for that book on every different platform. However, if you are using that ISBN on Ingram Spark, they may restrict your ability to publish that same book on Amazon. Sometimes there's hiccups between these contracts, and certain publishers and certain printers have different contracts with different distribution channels. And Amazon is you call it what do you call it when you say they're the gorilla in the room or
the
something
gorilla
like that?
in the room.
I call them I call them the monster or the big bully on the playground. They kind of just the biggest bookstore at this time, and have been for a very long time. So they like to push their weight around, and their contracts are pretty much their contracts, and nobody can challenge them. So whatever Amazon says goes, and there's nothing you can do about it. So rather than fight it, people they acquiesce. And in this case, that is sometimes what happens. So Draft to Digital even has this kind of issue with Amazon. So wide distribution doesn't necessarily mean wide distribution. However, the argument can be on wide
Well,
distribution with free ISBNs.
so with free ISBNs, what I would say is this. First of all, I'm never going to use a free ISBN from Amazon to do pretty much anything outside of the Amazon ecosystem. However,
Mm-hmm.
do I publish a print version of my book on Amazon using their free ISBN? Oh, yeah, you betcha, sure. You know why?
Because
Because
Amazon's a
Amazon
nepotistic
gives
monster.
preference
Yep.
to that,
It's a
but
nepotistic
never,
monster
ever, ever, ever hit expanded distribution on print on Amazon.
on
And
Amazon.
never, if you're using an ebook ISBN on Amazon, do not use that same ISBN other places.
You can't.
Amazon should be its own universe,
Yeah.
its own thing, and that is the only place that you put Amazon things. Now, wide distribution, you can get free ISBNs from a number of places. Now, and here's the thing, there's a strategy to this that involves getting your book in as many places as possible.
Right.
So Ingram is for bookstores and libraries. Ingram is expensive, an expensive place to print, and you don't make a lot of money on those books when they're printed and sold in bookstores.
It's okay. There's only 20% of the market there. Yeah. You don't care.
Yeah. Who cares? It doesn't matter because the point is that your book becomes available to those places. But when I'm dealing with retailers like Nook and Google Play and Kobo and those places where people can order physical books, then I'm going through somewhere else and using yet another ISBN.
And Barnes
So
and
you may
Noble even
have,
has them too. So, I mean, if you wanted to publish direct on Barnes and Noble, you can do that using their free
you can
ISBNs.
absolutely.
Mhm.
But typically, what you're going to do is you're going to use something like Drafted Digital Print or Publish Drive Print, and you're going to print through them,
Right.
which is still print on demand. But what it allows you to do is to get into retailers like Nook and Kobo and places
Barnes
like
and
that. So
Noble
you'll
and
have a
things like that.
separate ISBN for that. I'm actually in favor of that. Even if you're using your own ISBNs, you should have a unique one for Ingram. The reason is then I know exactly where those physical book sales come from. I can track them exactly, precisely, down to the numbers of exactly where that comes from. Because the best way, really the best way for bookstores to get your book is to order directly from you or directly from your publisher, right? Well, they don't usually order directly from small presses or publishers or independent publishers unless you develop a relationship with them, right? But if you do, you both can make more money by doing that than by them buying them through Ingram. But they'd like the reassurance that they can return them through Ingram, that they get a certain percentage discount off of your cover price. But that cover price in Ingram for me is almost always higher than it is anywhere else because otherwise I don't make any money. So, um, so, but that's some of them like that reassurance. That's fantastic. Let them have that reassurance. Right. But do it, but even if you use your own ISBNs, have a different ISBN for different platforms so that you know where that ISBN is being used. When you pick up a book of yours, you could flip to the ISBN page, you know exactly where that ISBN came from. So it's really, that's another useful thing to use ISBNs for, but you can get enough free ones that you can do all of that without paying for an ISBN. Now, if you're smart and you're buying them by the thousand or whatever, then ISBNs really aren't costing you that much money. You could argue that it's not a huge deal to have that. Then you have your name as the record on all the different formats and all the different things because you'll need one for audio when you start doing audiobooks as well, and the whole thing. So there's all kinds of arguments for doing
and libraries. And just as a little again asterisk here, libraries require a separate ISBN from the trade sales in your audiobooks. So you have to have two ISBNs for your audiobooks, one for libraries and one for, sales. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. And pricing is different for libraries too, which is one of the reasons they want a separate ISBN. Libraries are used to it. They're going to pay about double for your books and audiobooks and ebooks compared to what a retailer would pay, but they're going to loan it out tons and tons of
And
times.
depending on what
So,
platform they're using, you could be getting paid per checkout. So it really just depends on the
mhm.
library and the system they're using, but it's kind of a cool deal. You don't want to miss out on library sales because
Nope, you
in
don't.
all it's wide distribution, guys.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's another one that I'm kind of like on the fence about lately. Metadata associated with the ISBN is permanent, and you can't switch platforms with that ISBN information. You can't transfer that metadata from the one platform to the other because it's linked to that ISBN. So here's where I run into a little bit of an issue with this. Only because you can have multiple formats of a book, and this is kind of running into another topic of discussion, but I'm going to kind of merge these two. When you have multiple versions of a book, you have to have an ISBN for each version. So an
Format. Yeah.
audiobook, an ebook, and everybody has to have their own, right? And it's because it's identifying that version of that book. Good example of this is we were looking for a Harry Potter book that had the castle on the spine. And one time we went over to Barnes and Noble, and we were looking for that very specific Harry Potter book for a daughter for a Christmas present. And they didn't have that spine there. And we wanted that spine. So we were prepared to order it. And so we had to track down the ISBN specifically for that version of that book so that we can make sure we got that spine. So keep that in mind when you're changing covers and all kinds of stuff. Usually that means you've got a different ISBN. So that was my little like
Yeah.
rabbit hole I just went down. But metadata, it's linked to the well, your expansion. I mean, you're on this. You can't transfer it, and when you have these multiple formats, and you're using free ISBNs, and you've got them on these multiple platforms, it's almost like, why do you need to transfer that? So, but my thing has always been, well, keep it simple, stupid. So just have one ISBN for that one version of your book. And if you've got multiples, you have to, you're tracking all of that. So you have this idea like, oh, I know exactly where those numbers are coming from. And I'm thinking, well, okay, yeah, but then you have 15 ISBNs you're tracking. So that's really kind of where I'm at. I'm like, I don't know if all my clients will even care about tracking that many. Because I mean, one thing for sure, Troy, is you are like, you take this as like this is your full-time gig. So a lot of authors that are coming into this business are usually they're just getting started, or they write one book, they think they're going to keep writing more, and they usually don't. I hate to say that out loud, but it's kind of what happens. So what I want to know is why then should authors, I'm still kind of on the fence about this one. Why should they even care because transferring that data, if you're not going to transfer the data and you're not going to write more than one book, why do you care? And I don't think you
Well,
should.
and if you create a second edition of the book, you get another free ISBN that's
Right.
different than the first one that you had.
Right.
Right. Well, and so here there's two sides to this argument. Okay. The first one is, yeah, I want to track where everything's going and all that kind of stuff because I want that data. Right. But a lot of authors don't give a rip about that data, and I don't blame them. Like it really, in some cases, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't make that huge of a difference in the way I'm doing marketing and the way I'm doing something else. Right.
Yeah. A lot of times they just want that
So
bottom line sale,
the truth
right?
is, if it doesn't matter, then who cares if you have one ISBN or 15 because you're not tracking it anyway. So
Okay.
why are you paying for an ISBN so you can say, well, I want to see all my audiobook sales together under this ISBN, but you're not looking anyway. So who cares? If I am looking, then I want to know that audiobook came from Nook. That one came from Spotify. That one came from, I want to know that information. Well, there's other ways to know that information without tracking it by ISBN.
Mm-hmm.
So either you care, and it doesn't really matter the ISBN because if I have 15 free ISBNs, I can still track sales across all those different platforms and be very specific about it, except maybe when it comes to print books, and then it gets a little trickier, a little hairier,
Right.
as far as which bookstore bought that or whatever the case may be. But, you can still get enough of a general idea. And if you're not tracking all those things and you're not tracking all those sales, you just want to know the bottom line, then again, who cares if you have 15 ISBNs because you're not tracking by ISBN anyway. You don't care.
Right.
So
And see,
it's
that's where I'm
kind
kind
of
of like,
like, yeah. So it used to,
so,
I just say it used to matter a lot more than it does now.
right.
And even then, you could question whether it mattered as much. The big difference then was not as many people gave out free ISBNs. And the reason is those companies are buying them by the 5,000, by the 10,000,
Right.
whatever. They have thousands of them. They're literally costing them pennies. But what they're doing is getting you to come on their platform by giving you a free one, which, hey, it's not really free. You're paying for it somewhere along the
Somehow.
line.
And
But
usually in
if it's
royalties,
only
guys.
costing them if it's usually only costing them a few bucks, then why do they care?
Right.
And an example of this is so Drafted Digital creates uh, collects money by royalty, right?
Right.
10%, right?
10%.
Which is not terrible. It's
No,
not
it's
terrible at
actually
all.
pretty doable. Yeah.
It's actually pretty good. It's actually pretty good, right? But Publish Drive is a subscription platform, does not collect by royalties, and does not offer free ISBNs.
Right.
Why? Because, well, they're not collecting on your royalties, so they're not making that money back. So you're expected to pay for that up front yourself, or to bring an ISBN from somewhere else, or in some cases to do without an ISBN, similar to what you can do on Google Play, where you just pick a Google book number and who cares? But so you're paying for it, but because you can't use it off their platform and use it somewhere else. But in some ways, like, what does it matter? Again, it kind of depends. If you're in literary fiction and stuff like that, you might not want somebody to look up your book and find 15 ISBNs for it.
Right.
But if you're writing genre fiction and you're putting out audiobooks and you're doing all kinds of stuff like that, like, kind of who cares that there's 15 ISBNs? All it shows is that that book gets around,
Right.
you know? So,
So
yeah.
yeah, I'm kind of like, again, this is used to be like my biggest argument with my clients is that when you published and you wanted to be treated seriously, you got an imprint and you used an ISBN across the platform so that you owned the metadata and that you could transfer that ownership, or that, not that ownership, but the metadata across other platforms, and you weren't having to get 15 different ISBNs. But um I'm gonna bring this up because it's just kind of, it seems to be an issue, but it rarely happens. In fact, I haven't had it happen for any of my clients in the last 3 years, but it has happened. And that is that an ISBN came up for a client on one platform, and it was matching the ISBN metadata, a different metadata, well, the same metadata for a different ISBN on another platform. And they flagged it as a copyright violation, but it was the same
Mm-hmm.
author. So I'm going to just say this. In the age of bots, crawl bots, and AI, and the mistakes that are made with robots, I'm just using robots as a very general term here, but like the mistake that is made when there's no human intervention and discernment that can come in and actually see the difference and understand a human's complaint, then in some cases, this could flag you as a copyright violator and have you pulled from a platform. It has happened in the past. Is it something that might be getting improved? Like I said, I haven't had it happen for any of my clients in the last 3 years that do this, that have the free ISBN issue or have multiple ISBNs for whatever reasons. But just keep in mind that it can happen. Another
Mm-hmm.
ISBN issue that I will bring up is and this is something that if you've published with a small vanity press before, and now you want to do your book again or redo it or have a new edition or whatever, first you always have that issue of trying to release the rights from the previous publisher. But also, you can't just take your book and go publish it with a new ISBN. That does, you're not legally able to do that. I mean, your book's rights are linked to that ISBN. That ISBN is with the publisher. You can't just take your book and go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you to understand that. that's not something it will get you completely, it will get you
Hmm.
banned from Amazon. They won't even sell your book. So,
Well, yeah,
if you get caught,
man.
yeah, there's
And
so
so
many
much
legal
advice with this,
prosecutes.
like
Hmm.
change the title.
Yeah.
For sure, change the cover. Like I got
Hmm.
the rights for one of my books back from a publisher, and I self-published it, once I got the rights back. Okay, but I waited like at least 120 days to make sure that it had disappeared from all of the platforms. Then I changed the cover and changed some information inside the book and changed the publisher and had a brand new ISBN. And this was a case where I paid for an ISBN instead. And the reason is so I can separate it very deliberately from that publisher's edition to make sure, and then make sure you have all your documentation that you got your rights back, that this is now your copyrighted material, that the publisher no longer has the contract for it. Because that's really, really important. There's a couple of my books out there that I would love to have the rights back to and republish. I
Hmm.
don't, and I'm not going to take any chances with that. Also, regardless of whether you get free ISBNs or pay for ISBNs, if you do not own the rights to that particular edition or format of your book, you cannot go out and just, for instance, if your publisher owns the right to your audiobook, even though they have not exercised those rights and made an audiobook, if they own those rights and you go out and make your own audiobook, you can and likely will be
Be
sued.
sued.
So just be aware that this ISBN thing, if you have a publisher and the publisher holds that ISBN and holds that book by that ISBN and they have a contract with you for the rights to that story, you cannot just go and redo it somewhere else
And get
and
free
try to get away with it.
ISBNs. Yeah. Mm-mm. You can't
You
even do it
will
with
not,
purchased one.
yeah,
You have to
you
make
will
sure.
not, you will encounter problems and you will become a liability to companies like Amazon and they will simply cut you off.
If you have
Um,
questions,
so,
I'm gonna give this because we're not lawyers, but I will say this.
Mm-mm.
If you are in a situation where you're trying to get rights back from your publisher and you don't know how to do it or what you need to do, I can recommend a really great lawyer. He's an IP lawyer,
Mhm.
copyright lawyer, and he will help you. But and there's lots of them out there, but I can recommend a great one. And
Yeah.
I would
Also,
say just talk to an attorney.
yeah, also organizations like Ally and NINC and professional writing organizations,
Right.
Mystery Writers of America, International Thriller Writers. If you feel like your contract should be up and you should have the rights back to your book and you do not, there are specific people to contact at specific publishing houses for reversion rights, and they are
Right.
in charge of that. And you can do it, but it really helps to have an organization on your side. The reason is you as an individual author make no difference at all to that publisher,
Right.
more than likely, unless your name is Stephen King, right?
Right.
You don't make any difference to that publisher at all. And there's a story, maybe we'll have a guest on one of these times and talk
Oh.
about a story of getting some rights back and how you can do that with the right attorneys. But anyway, but the point of the thing is that if you have a group behind you, then
Hmm.
you say, oh, by the way, I'm a member of Ally, and they are going to sign off on sending the letters to you asking for reversion and things like that, because they know if they don't give you those rights back and you're owed those rights, that Ally will make it public. And they have a large, large audience, especially of
Audience. Yeah.
authors,
Hmm.
right? So,
Yeah.
anyway.
So yeah, just be aware that the ISBN issue and the debate actually does come with, it's not just a, oh yeah, just preference. Like there's some legalities here. But
Mhm,
but yeah, so when you're in the process of self-publishing though, that's where we're coming from here.
mhm,
So this kind of like segues into protecting your long-term rights as an author. So my argument about getting your own ISBN is this: that ISBN is yours. It's like, and I tell people all the time, you can buy a batch of 10, use two, and sit on those others until you're ready or whatever you want to do because they do not expire. It's like
Hmm.
buying real estate, only it's real estate in your name that never goes away. It doesn't, they don't expire. So if it takes you another 10 years to write a book, okay, they're there, they'll still be there. Those numbers are held in reserve for you. They're not ever repossessed. So that means that the number that you assign to your book is forever yours. So when you write a book and you put that ISBN on it, that ISBN, regardless if you get a free one or a bought one, it is linked to that book forever. What I love about buying your own is that, again, all these other things that we've talked about, it prevents anybody else from having control. Now, one of the things that we kind of touched on was that sometimes, I talk about this when I talk about digital rights management and some other things, but one of the things that you guys need to understand is a platform, if your book is linked to that platform and that platform goes down, you can't do anything about it. The platform's down, your book is gone. So this is one of the reasons why we always talk about wide distribution. But years ago, Microsoft had Microsoft Books. Don't know if any of you guys are been around long enough to know about them, but Microsoft Books was selling books there for a while. They had music and all kinds of things too. And then what happened is they decided that it wasn't making enough money, and so they shut down. Well, everyone who bought a book on Microsoft Books lost that book. We no longer had those books. The books were gone and there was no getting them back from another platform or anything. There was just the money we spent, all the hundreds of dollars I spent on music, gone. I was like, where's all my songs? So it was just all gone. So I want you to understand that when you have a free ISBN, it is linked to that platform. If that platform goes down, there's nothing you can do about it. And businesses, they go in and out of business all the time. They get bought and sold all the time. Fandango for at home, Fandango for home or whatever. It used to be, well, it still kind of is movies everywhere, but it's also used to be Voodoo and it
Hmm.
used to be, it used to be Walmart movies. And dude, like it's been bought and sold so many times, it's ridiculous. So just remember, we're lucky that Fandango is still honoring our old purchases of movies, but they didn't have to. And
Hmm.
so I want you to remember that when you're buying digital anything, that doesn't mean it's forever yours. Even if you download it, the metadata is locked in. So you could have it on your phone or your device, but if that metadata shuts off, it shuts down that song, book, digital product. So when you buy your own and you go wide with it, it doesn't matter. It's all one ISBN. So if somebody owns that format and it like got shut down on one platform, say they bought it on Kindle and they know that's the book they had, what's beautiful about having a platform of your own as an author is if that person reached out to you and said, "Oh my gosh, I'm sure you heard, Amazon went down." The day that happens, by the way, I would be like, "What? The world is over." But yeah, if that happened and an author reached out or a reader reached out to you, a fan who said, "I really want your book back," and they could prove that they bought your book, you as an author would probably be one, flattered, and two, be willing to give them a copy of your book because it would just give them that opportunity to stay connected with you. But if you don't, own the ISBN or anything, you don't have that record. You don't know which version they had. You know what I mean? It's still linked to that platform. It's linked to that platform. And I don't know. I'm kind of the reason I get really kind of touchy about this is because I don't like anybody being in control of my stuff. And for some reason it feels like that they're in control of my stuff. Now, if you go with a
Hmm.
vanity press, and they issue any publisher, they issue you the ISBN. That ISBN belongs to them, dudes. That means your book is theirs. I don't care if you wrote it or not. I don't care if you paid them $30,000 to publish or not. That book is in their hands. So, yeah, the contract might be there and you might get the rescission rights back and you might, but it's not your ISBN if they rescind on that. You got your book back, but you didn't, it's not published.
Yeah, that's a whole different can of worms. The thing I would say about, okay, so let's delve into rights really quick, but not going into it real deep because we could have a whole discussion on rights. But here's the thing. You as an author, if you publish with a vanity press or with another publisher that has a contract that takes where they take some of the rights to your story, it is no longer your story.
Yeah.
So if you have a book and it gets optioned by Hollywood, okay, just use this as an example. So Hugh Howey, if everybody's seen Silo on Apple TV, even if you haven't, Wool, Wool, uh, gosh, now I just lost the other two books, but there's three books in the series that are all becoming part of the Silo series.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
on Apple TV. Walker in the books is a guy. In the show, Walker is a woman. When Hugh Howey found out that Walker was going to be female in the show was when he went to the premiere.
Oh, no.
Because when he sold the rights to that story to Hollywood, it was no longer his.
Right.
They can interpret it any way that they want. Okay. So just understand that when you give that to a publisher or somebody else, those rights become theirs, not yours. Okay. You may get them back after a certain period of time, but they become theirs. When you purchase something digitally, what you're purchasing is the right to use that. It's a license to read it. Now, for most people, because, again, genre fiction type things, like I'm going to read a book on my Kindle, I'm never going to read it again. I don't even know. I'm like, oh, I read that one already. I mean, stuff like that, right? Because that's the way that works. But if Amazon shut down and you suddenly had 3,000 readers come to you and say, hey, I bought this book on Amazon and Amazon shut down and I want it for free, I'd be like, hey, dudes,
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry that happened to you, but it happened to me too because a big chunk of my income went away when Amazon shut down. And so I'm sorry about that, but you just have to rebuy the books.
Right.
Exactly. That type of thing. But anyway, all of those things, like that comes down to rights and what you actually have the rights to. So if you want to own books, buy paper books. If you want to own music, buy CDs, buy vinyl, buy whatever. But
if you
don't buy digital
own movies,
because you don't
buy
own it.
DVDs.
You know, own movies, buy DVDs, VHS, Blu-rays, laser disc. For those of you old enough to remember that, that's nowadays you would play frisbee golf with those.
Oh my gosh, they're huge.
But we didn't have frisbee golf back then. We just had frisbee. Anyway,
we're really showing our age here,
and we're really going off topic. But yeah. I'm just saying. So the rights to that. So it is an interesting point to have the rights to your own ISBN. But truth be told, if Amazon went away tomorrow and all of my ISBNs that I'd gotten for free with Amazon went with it, it really wouldn't make any difference at all to my business as far as the ISBNs are concerned. Now, it would make a difference to my business in other ways, and there would have to be a really quick pivot for things to happen the way I need them to happen to continue to survive. But all that being said is that's you can do things without Amazon, but your ISBNs being tied to them isn't necessarily a huge disaster. But I can understand the desire to be in control of those. That is, ISBNs is just one thing that I've decided I don't necessarily need to control.
Right.
Because the benefits to me versus the cost of controlling them does not equal out. For some people, it absolutely, positively does. And if that's the answer for you, use that answer.
Right.
Okay,
exactly. That's why we started
kind of the whole point.
Video. That's the whole point. So let's just cover costs of the ISBNs because that might be, again, a deciding factor. ISBNs are expensive if you're only going to buy one. And I never recommend only buying one because I don't ever understand why you're just only going to do a print copy of your book or you're only going to do an ebook. Why are you doing that? You need to have need to have at least a print and an ebook. And the reason is because why not? And when I'm formatting, I'm automatically gonna have both for free, and it doesn't cost you anything more to create that file. So there's that. The interior of the file. Now keep in mind, if you're going to do an ebook only and not do print, I can kind of understand that because there are costs associated with creating a cover and, doing that kind of thing. But anyway, that's if you're going into some more standards. And again, check out my course if you're interested in that kind of thing. But the ISBNs, you can purchase a single one for $125. That's kind of a lot. You can buy a block of 10, which is what I usually recommend. It's actually the most popular version of this kind of purchase plan because people can kind of like stomach that. And that's about $295. Now, you keep that in mind. That kind of knocks down the price of the ISBN per ISBN to like $35 or something like that. Yeah. $30. So, when you're buying them at $30 a pop as opposed to $125, that's where it makes sense. Now, Troy even mentioned, buying 1,000 of them. You can buy 1,000 of them and get that price way down. Like, I think it can get down to like,
they're like $10 down to like
$10 a piece or less. It's super cheap. So the cost is minimal when you buy them in bulk, like you mentioned earlier. And so I always say, to avoid the confusion, to have that professional appearance, and of course, to not have any issues with the rights being tied up with anybody else or anything else, and control over that metadata. The cost is relatively low. If you are a professional author and looking to publish your book, you're already investing. And this would be minimal compared to some of your other expenses, i.e. an editor.
Right.
Editors, when we're doing novels, we know we're your most expensive investment in that book for the most part. I know that I'm more expensive than a cover designer is going to be. I'm more expensive than, depending on the cover designer, Jeff Brown Graphics, by the way, plug. He's awesome. But I'm going to be your most expensive investment. Hopefully I'm the most worthwhile investment. Make sure your editors are vetted and you've got a good editor, but keep in mind that ISBN relative to the rest of the costs in publishing a book is pretty low. So I'm on that kind of fence there. So what, like you said, Troy, though, when you're doing a lot of this yourself, and we can kind of like bring up that other author that we were mentioning. We won't say his name, but his reasoning for buying ISBNs, that's still $300, $150, $250 to $300 more you could be spending on some other things like, your ad spend or whatever. So I can kind of understand that argument, but how do you feel about that?
Well, so here's the thing from a business perspective. Okay. So here's the thing. If you're a professional author, you're already investing in things like advertising, along with your editors, along with all the other stuff that you're investing in. Same as if you're a one-time, brand new author, whatever the case may be, or you only have a few books, whatever that case may be. So it makes a lot more sense if you are going to buy ISBNs to go ahead and buy 1,000 of them. But then there are things you have to manage related to all of those ISBNs. Okay. So there is some additional, just in its minor work, but it takes time. So there's two investments, time and money, and that time and money can be spent doing other things. Okay. But on the flip side of that, owning those ISBNs doesn't take that much time. And if you buy them in bulk, doesn't take that much money. And if you're making money writing, then it's much easier to swallow affording those ISBNs. $300 may be for ISBNs may be a lot less important to me than it is to someone who is who $300 may be the difference between a really great cover and a $50 one that's a stock cover from covers.com, right?
Right.
Not that there's anything wrong with that if that's your choice. And what you have to do, it's not something I would do. But anyway, let's say that it's okay, that one's fine, right? Then that's fine. That's a choice, right? You're welcome to make that choice. Okay, but um, I'd rather you spend $300 on a cover than $300 on 10 ISBNs. So
Right.
if it's a choice for you between those two, I would say, hey, maybe free ISBNs are a good answer for you because of affordability,
Right.
right? As a professional, though, $300, maybe that's not as big of a deal if you're making a living doing this. But at the same time, I look at that $300 and go, well, I could get an even better cover, or I could spend $300 on Amazon ads, or you know what I mean? There's other ways that I can spend that money. So the debate is really the value that you're getting out of it,
Right.
you know? And
Right.
so it it's again, it's one of those things where it depends. It really depends on what you want and what you're doing and that type of thing. For me, I'm like, is it worth it? Just not always. No, it's
Not
not always
always.
worth
Yeah.
it. But if
So
you're, you know, it might be.
it might be. So I'm going to give you my number one reason and number one circumstance that I will 9 out of 10 times recommend the free ISBN. You ready for this one? Legacy work.
Mm,
Anytime you're doing a family history work or you're, writing your own personal memoir for your family just to have for posterity's sake, and you don't believe that there's any kind of trade value to that. When I say trade value, I mean value to the general public. If you don't see that people are going to be really interested in the fact that, you grew up in Montana, you had a dog named Spike, and your grandmother liked to pitch tents on Saturdays, like if that is not going to be something that's going to be interesting to the general public and it's not a viable marketable product, then I say get your free ISBNs. Don't invest
hmm
in the ISBNs. It's not going to be worth it for you. So,
hmm
however, and I say this because I've had a few clients do legacy projects and they had a specific purpose for it. One of the reasons that you would probably not be able to do that is if you were in fact going to submit it to a historical library. So there are some libraries out there specific to areas that collect family histories for, genealogical reasons and for historical reasons. And in that case, those libraries won't take the free ISBNs, but you can always check with the head librarian of that organization first before you purchase anything to see if they have a preference. And that would be my number
hmm
one recommendation there. The rest of it, again, I'm still going to lean towards purchasing your own ISBNs. But again, like you saw so far in this debate with Troy and I can understand certain circumstances in which this is not going to be the viable reason. And in the case of Troy, when he's writing trade fiction and he's writing a lot of it, and he's got a strategic, well thought out marketing plan and approach to his author business, then I can see that this would be a viable, possible way to run your business. So I can lean on this side of the fence. But again, if your priorities lie with these other things that I mentioned, and the way that we approach the business, yes, it's shifting. There's a lot of things that are kind of areas that are becoming gray still,
hmm
but there are still a lot of snobs and bigots. And I say bigots, I mean book bigots. I'm not talking about like racist. I'm talking about book bigots in this industry. And if you want to have any kind of legitimate uh like if reputation means something to you, I'll just say it that way. If reputation is on your list of high priorities, you're going to want to get your own ISBNs.
Mhm.
So what would be your final thought on this, Troy?
Well, my final thought is just an example. So I have a deal with Spotify. I have 52 short stories coming out this year in Audible, one a week for the entire year.
I know I'm
Now
so
I have
excited
a
about this.
choice.
Mm-hmm.
I could buy 52 ISBNs for
Which
the
is expensive.
audiobooks,
Mm-hmm.
which is expensive. Or I can take the free ISBNs and really, since my primary focus is on Spotify and streaming services like that, it doesn't make any difference.
Right.
Right. So the ISBNs don't make any difference. So what I'll say is you just have to weigh this on a case by case basis. You may have a case like that, but it's highly unlikely that most of the people listening to this are going to have 52 short stories coming out as individual episodes an entire year and have to make that choice.
Right.
Right. It may be a much simpler choice for you than the complexity that adds to things. So I'll just say that. I mean, this really does depend. And there are
Mm-hmm.
going to be circumstances where free ISBNs are a perfect choice. Like you talked about with legacy projects, there's going to be times with the legacy project when it's a perfect choice. There's going to be times with the legacy project when that is an imperfect choice. And we should talk about legacy projects in a separate thing because having worked in the museum world, I know a lot about legacy
Oh
projects
yeah.
and where those actually go in the
Yeah.
museum world. So
We
we
should we
can
should talk about it then. Because
we can talk about
it
that.
might surprise some of our people. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Um,
might be surprising to you, and I'm sorry in advance. But anyway, um, but it really does depend, and that would just be my final word on this. Is it really depends on you and what you're doing and what your publishing goals are and what that looks like to you. And nobody can answer that question except for you.
exactly. Exactly. So I guess our final word is two words. It
It
depends.
depends. Yeah.
It
And
depends.
the other last one is if you need help making this decision and you want to
Exactly.
talk to one or both of us about making that decision, then hey, jump on our websites, whatever, book a call with us, book some time with us, and we're happy to talk with you about what your options are and what we think might be the best answer for your particular circumstance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll cost you some money for our time, but I think by the end of it, you would have a good idea of what it is you actually need to do.
And it would be a
I
minimal,
mean
yeah, it
need.
would be a minimal amount of money compared to what it could cost you in the
Yeah.
long run.
Yeah.
So,
It's kind of
um,
like talking to a copyright attorney. You know, a couple $100 for an hour of their time is worth the thousands you may save later on
exactly. And
by
I'll
doing the
just
wrong
say,
thing.
I'm not a couple of $100 an hour. I wish I were, but
Yeah, me
but
either.
I'm not that. But we're a very affordable couple of editors and professionals that are willing to talk to you guys. Okay, so yeah, you can find Troy at troylambertwrites.com. By the way, awesome new logo, the plot dude. If you guys are writers and you're looking for help with plots, he is the man, the myth, the dude. He's got some amazing pocket guides that he's re-releasing and they're awesome. I highly recommend him if you have problems with your plot and you want help, go to the dude. And then I can help you with your publishing dreams and helping them make them a reality. We've got this for you. So you can find me at editsbystacey.com. I think this was fun. I think we should do more of these
Yeah,
debates. I think you're kind of
I think
fun.
so. Yeah,
Yeah. So anyway,
exactly.
all right, everybody. Well, we'll catch you next time.
All right. Thanks, everybody.